All right, what's shaking? Good to be back. Happy Easter to all of you who celebrate. Hope y'all had the opportunity this past weekend. Spend some time with the family, get that long weekend in, and now we're back going full force. Off-season episode, big episode in store. Draft right around the corner, so there's some reason to be excited, at least from an NFL perspective. And y'all know I had to bring on my guy MJ. He's been licking his chops. I can tell you that much with the new ESPN article that dropped on his boy Jalen Hurts. I know he's been pumped with all the content, so happy to have him on here. MJ, happy Easter. Hope you had a great weekend, man. How you been doing?
JV, it's a pleasure to be on. Obviously, in the NFL community, the sphere, it's all this Hurts Eagles
You
stuff.
love
I
it.
had somebody on, man, I had somebody on the other day on Real Talk, and they were like, dang, it feels like the Eagles are the Cowboys of the NFL now. Like, this offseason, it's all Eagles stuff. It helps me out, but shoot, it's a lot.
No, I can just imagine the grin waking up, seeing the ESPN article drop, and you're like, there's my content for a month, a
Yes,
month straight. The
yes.
fan base loves it. And we'll talk about that. But we got a jam-packed episode for today. You and me, we went over some topics for the episode. We're talking Super Bowl contenders. We'll go over some quarterback stuff, some basic rankings. It's going to be pretty interesting. So if you love the content, please go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe like y'all always do. Your support is appreciated. MJ, first thing we had up, we're talking Super Bowl contenders heading into the next 2026 season. Obviously, this is pre-draft, but honestly, I don't think the draft sways a lot of this. A lot of these guys, a lot of these players, a lot of these teams are already kind of in the Super Bowl mix, so adding a piece in the draft can definitely help, but what they got is kind of what they got at this point. So we'll talk right now, Super Bowl contender or not in 2026. I'll give you like 6 teams. We'll talk about each one, a few minutes at a time. First guys we had up, the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes with that torn ACL late last season really hurts. They have a ton of weaknesses right now, like glaring weaknesses. The secondary needs a boost. They traded away, obviously, Trent McDuffie to the Rams. They lost another piece. Mahomes needs help on offense. I don't think the Kelsey contract is great. I think it does a lot more harm than it does good. They're kind of holding on to something that was and isn't anymore, in my opinion. And the team, the roster is just getting older. So, at least from my perspective, I'm counting them out this year. I don't think the dynasty is done, but this just isn't the year they win it all, in my opinion, at least. What are your thoughts, MJ?
I think as long as you have Patrick Mahomes under center, you have a chance. I will say it again. The Chiefs are a threat. They are a contender to win the AFC, to win the Super Bowl as long as they have Patrick Mahomes. And one thing you can bank on with Patrick Mahomes is that he's not going to tank a season. He is training right now in the offseason, preparing to be the week 1 starter. And they have some more draft capital, so I expect them to either get another edge rusher, you got to, replace some guys on the defensive line, but also they can draft another cornerback because what they've done essentially is that you trade away L'Jarius Sneed and he goes to the Titans.
Yep.
You then draft Trent McDuffie. Then it was time to pay Trent McDuffie. You realize, all right, do I really want to pay Trent McDuffie? And you trade him for a haul. So they can now retool, and it's different ways that they can go about it. But I think as long as you have Mahomes, and I suspect them to draft another weapon, presumably another wide receiver or the successor to Travis Kelsey, if they do that, I think the Chiefs, they got a real good shot because the way the AFC looks, I think the Broncos, they're going to be a huge contender. We'll probably talk about them. Outside of that, there isn't a team that I would say is just like talent-wise, head and shoulder above everybody. Like, I got to see it to believe it. But with the Chiefs, I've seen it. And when Mahomes is healthy, their floor is overtime of the AFC Championship game. So I believe that as long as they have Mahomes, they'll be a contender.
Well, and you're right. Like, you just can't count them out. And that's why I kind of laughed at the media people who were saying, the dynasty's wraps. This is what every team goes through. Like, eventually you have to hit a rebuild stage. And unfortunately, the Chiefs really suffered this past season. They had injuries in the receiver room. They were missing guys all year long. Just too much inconsistency. I think my only issue right now is that their holes are pretty big holes, and I like Spags on the defensive side of the ball, but I truly do think they need to get a game changer on the offensive side of the ball for Mahomes to work with. I like Rashee Rice. I like Xavier Worthy. Travis Kelce is still somewhat productive, and they bring on Kenneth Walker to a massive deal, and that's kind of what you got to do in free agency, high risk, high reward. I like what they're doing, and it's kind of time now with the aging roster to build up, rebuild, retool, and I completely agree with their strategy of developing corners and just shipping them off. They did it with Charvarius Ward as well. Like, they've done it time and time again because they're good enough to do it, because they have good enough coaching. I'm just not sure with the way the AFC looks, and obviously we'll talk about a team in their division next, if they can compete with their weaknesses. But this is a team you just also can't count out, like you said, MJ. Like, the dynasty, it's not going anywhere as long as you got Mahomes, in my opinion. I like Andy Reid a lot. Don't get me wrong. One of the greatest to ever do it, one of the greatest play callers. But it really is Mahomes. That's the cornerstone of this team. And if he's healthy week one, again, a team that you can't necessarily count out either. Now, a team you mentioned, the Denver Broncos, in the division, obviously won it last year, probably should have made the Super Bowl had Bo Nix been healthy in that AFC Conference Championship game. They made that notable offensive upgrade in Jalen Waddle, that slot receiver that they desperately needed. Their weakness, in my opinion, is still a missing run game. I mean, J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey, it's all right, but nothing that I would rave about necessarily. But the defense is a solid unit. They're just a well-built team. Sean Payton, experienced Super Bowl winning head coach. They were the number one team last year, leading the league in sacks. Like, they can get after the quarterback. They can play good defensive football. They're a well-rounded team. I'm saying yes, absolutely, because all they did was improve during the offseason.
100%. And also think about the confidence Bo Nix has leading into the 2026 season. Because the last time we saw Bo Nix on the football field, he outplayed Josh Allen. So essentially, Bo Nix outplayed who many believe is the best quarterback in the NFL. And he's now getting a legit number one wide receiver to add to that offense. So they have a great offensive line. You mentioned the running backs. It's kind of like when you have that great of a offensive line, you don't have to have a Saquon Barkley. You don't have to have a Jahmyr Gibbs. That's like a luxury. If you just have a competent running back, J.K. Dobbins, and a great offensive line, you're going to be good. That defense is amazing. You have the best cornerback in the NFL, not even close. And then you talk about Nick Bonito and what these guys are doing. And so I think from top to bottom, this is the best roster in the AFC. And one could argue, is it the best roster in the NFL after the addition of Jalen Waddle? But no doubt, JV, they've got to be a contender to win the AFC, to win the whole entire thing. And that added element of Bo Nix knowing I can hang with the best of them has got to be just leaning in the Broncos' favor come next season.
Yeah, he's got to have that confidence boosted. After that game, I mean, I watched it obviously as a Bills fan, and Bo Nix, from what I've seen, his progression year one to year two, now hopefully to year three, has just been improvement. Now, he kind of starts out years slow, and what I don't like about the Broncos is they play down to the level of their opponents, but they also compete with the best of the best. I remember watching Bo Nix in a few games late last season. We mentioned the playoff game against the Bills. There was a game I think he played the Packers, and he just balled out. Like, there were multiple times I watched him as a playmaker, and he really did impress me. And we'll talk about Bo Nix a little later when we get to quarterbacks, but obviously I'm picking the Broncos as one of my favorites to make and potentially win the Super Bowl for next season. Sticking in the AFC, MJ, the Baltimore Ravens, missing the playoffs last year with a generational talent in Lamar Jackson, is a complete disgrace. I don't care what you have to say about the injuries. I know he missed time. there was enough time where Lamar was playing to begin the season at an MVP level, and the Ravens just fell short. Not because Lamar wasn't playing well. They started 1-3 because the team wasn't ready to go. Now, obviously, Harbaugh out the building. They bring in Jesse Minter, which I really do like. They botched that Max Crosby trade, but they made things right with Trey Hendrickson. So, obviously, you're looking at this roster, and yeah, they could use another number one weapon, in my opinion. Yeah, there are some spots defensively that could be improved, but overall, it's like, yeah, absolutely, they're a playoff and Super Bowl contender. You just can't go wrong with Lamar and King Henry, especially when they're both playing healthy at the peak of their games.
It's interesting because look at this Ravens team. When they traded for Max Crosby, we all thought, then they got cold feet. But before they got cold feet, and everybody thought, okay, they got Max Crosby, I was one of the people saying it is Super Bowl or bust. Now they get Trey Hendrickson, and they're able to keep those first-round picks. One could say that was actually a smarter move, even if it wasn't the most ethical move, because you keep your first-round picks. And are you saying the difference between Trey Hendrickson and Max Crosby is 2 first-round picks? Nah, again, I think Max Crosby is all world, but he is not 2 first-round picks better than Trey Hendrickson. So it all comes down to what the Ravens do in the draft. Currently constructed, I would not have them as a serious contender. You have your best offensive lineman, Tyler Linderbaum. I don't blame him. He got a bag from the Raiders. But if that guy was your best offensive lineman and he left and the offensive line already was shaky, I mean, they have clips of like all other offensive linemen's lowlights throughout the season. Now, the biggest reason why someone could say the Ravens are contenders is because of Lamar Jackson. With Lamar Jackson, it was after that injury during the season, he was not looking like that MVP Lamar. Now, you have an off season, you have some time to get right. You saw him at, voluntary workouts this off season, and that was a talking point for much of this off season. Is Lamar Jackson going to be present when you have a new coach implementing his scheme and different tactics and different philosophy than John Harbaugh? So ultimately, I think the Ravens defense is going to be much improved. You're talking about a huge upgrade from Zach Orr to Jesse Minter. Huge, huge upgrade. But unless they hit it out the park in the draft, that offense will probably take a hit. So if you can have the defense make up for the offense, and you can just say, all right, man, the defense is going to keep us in the game. Lamar Jackson, you're an MVP. Derrick Henry, you are a first ballot Hall of Famer. Take us there when we're close in the game. Then I'm with you. But they have to hit it out the park in the draft for me to seriously say I would see them contend to win the AFC, because we have seen Ravens teams that were much more talented than this one, with and still not get it done. So I think Baltimore might be a piece away, but maybe they get that in the draft and we can revisit this conversation.
Well, I think a healthy Lamar is just a completely different picture, and I was somewhat concerned at the end of last season. Now, the trade rumors were insane when people were suggesting that the Ravens actually package him up and send him away. But what was encouraging, I think, was that Week 18 game against the Steelers when I sat down and watched from the first to the 60th minute Lamar Jackson play phenomenal football and come up clutch when they needed him. And then I think Loop was the kicker's name that missed the kick and sent the Steelers to the playoffs. That really wasn't on Lamar. And at that point, that was kind of like a sigh of relief for me. Like, hey, if he gets healthy again, he's still that athletic specimen that will dominate you both in the run game and the pass game. Zay Flowers is good, don't get me wrong. He's not my favorite, prototype receiver. I don't think he's a true number one in this league, and a lot of people seem to. In my opinion, he's a really good number two option. If they can get a number one, that would make them exceptional. But I do think the generational talent in Lamar, when healthy, and another year with Derrick Henry, if he can still be at the top of his game or even 90, 85%, with the way Jesse Minter worked that defense in LA, I'm excited to see the way this Ravens offense and defense looks. I do think they have the opportunity to contend for a Super Bowl, and I will say, you did mention it, MJ, the final day of judgment will come, and they will ask the Ravens, what happened that day? They got cold feet. I ain't hearing shit from anybody. People were saying I don't know, making excuses. If you got Trey Hendrickson at a cheaper price, you get your picks back, that's a way better deal. That's a way better deal. And everyone with critical thinking skills understands that the Ravens did what was best. They lost a lot of pieces in free agency, actually, and I don't blame them, right, with the Linderbaum deal, like you said. They just weren't going to pay that. But I do think if they got Lamar, Jesse Minter, I like the pairing. They're obviously in the conversation, at least, for the Super Bowl. Now let's flip to the NFC. Your guys, the Philadelphia Eagles. MJ, 2024, they looked like a juggernaut. 2025, in my opinion, the complete opposite. I expected them to be a back-to-back champion. They were not. The good is that the offense is still loaded with a bunch of talent. Even if they do lose A.J. Brown, I still think they got a lot of great weapons there to work with, and an offensive line that, when healthy, is lethal. The bad is that injuries hurt them last year, and the ugly is that A.J. Brown, the trade rumors, and now this new article dropping, there's just a lot of bad publicity. I'm saying yes, but they're not my favorites right now to win the Super Bowl. What are your thoughts?
I'm a huge diehard fan. I love the Eagles. They're my squad. If anybody is seriously saying right now they should be the favorite out the NFC, they're smoking. Because the Rams, undoubtedly, they should be the favorite out the NFC. It shouldn't even be a question. They have the most talent right now. They improved at their weakest position, which was their secondary. They got 2 starters, right? And it's not even just a starter. You're talking about a bona fide number 1 corner in Trent McDuffie. I mean, they got the Chiefs secondary damn near. So I look back at the Eagles. I agree. 2025 season, the offense was very disappointing. Now, I thought going into last season, okay, the defense is going to take a step back, and you're going to need the offense, that's the highest paid offense in the NFL, to make up for what you'll lose defensively, because you're losing out on Milton Williams. You're losing out on Josh Sweat. You're losing out on Darius Slay and CJ Gardner-Johnson, right? So you have all these missing pieces, but actually the defense, it was struggling initially, but it got its footing, especially after that Jalen Phillips trade. And they were one of the top 5 defenses in the NFL come end of the season. And then you're talking about the offense. Their biggest issue was they couldn't move the ball between their own 20-yard line and the opponent's 20-yard line. Now, when they got to the opponent's 20-yard line and they were in their opponent's red zone, they were the best team in the NFL in the red zone. I attribute a lot of that to the quarterback, because I think comes to the red zone, a lot of it is just our players are better than yours. Our quarterback is better than what y'all got going out over there, and we're gonna get it done. But I look at this Eagles team, their division is going to be so much tougher. It's gonna be the NFC East is going to be really, really tough, because you got the Cowboys that you could expect that defense to be better. They're drafting number 12. They're going to go defense. I hope and pray that Caleb Downs does not drop to 12, because that would be a complete gift to them. The Commanders, they had a bunch of injuries last season. If they stay healthy, they'll at least be better than what they were this past season. And the Giants, they have a better coach. And again, they had a bunch of injuries too. So ultimately, if the NFC East is healthy, it's going to be a much, much harder road for the Eagles. And they cannot have the showing they had last season, or else they will not win the division. but I would still have them win the division. I think the article was a great thing for Jalen Hurts because it keeps him on his toes and he realizes, okay, there's pressure on me. Every single time this guy has had pressure on him to deliver, he has answered the bell. So I understand why some might think, all right, y'all won the division back-to-back years. This could be a year where there's serious regression. I definitely understand that sentiment, but I still believe the talent the Eagles have from top to bottom and knowing what Howie is going to do in this draft and knowing the extra motivation that their quarterback is going to have, there's nothing in my mind that tells me otherwise, that the Eagles will not be a contender in the NFC. But the favorite, and we'll probably get into them, should be the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams obviously a game away last year. And Philly, when you talk about them as a whole, they got all the puzzle pieces, right? Like, they have the talent. They just couldn't put it together last year. And whether you attribute that to poor coaching or poor quarterback play or inefficiencies and injuries on the offensive side of the ball, the defense, I will admit, was really solid. Now, you lose Jalen Phillips. They weren't paying him that contract. Like, I know Philly fans probably fell in love with them. Just way too much money considering who they're going to have to pay lining up contracts for guys like Jalen Carter, I assume, in the future. But I do think the talent alone will take them far. But you make a good point. The division is a lot tougher than people give it credit for. The Cowboys are going to be a very good team. They have 2 first-round draft picks this year, assuming they don't trade up and give away one of them. The Commanders, who were in the NFC Conference Championship game just a year ago, Jaden Daniels healthy. I assume they're a better team, and obviously the Giants, better coaching staff, better players, big free agency for them as well. So we'll see with the Eagles, but I do still think that they are in the Super Bowl mix. Next up in the NFC, the Chicago Bears. Electric 2025 season. Playoff win first year with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. That's phenomenal. That duo looked great. The free agency upgrades defensively were awesome. Devin Bush, Kobe Bryant. My major concern right now is still that secondary. I don't think it's phenomenal, and they need to put more pressure on the quarterback. They need to get that game changer. I'm saying yes, but they were also very lucky in 2025. This is the closest one, in my opinion, yet. I do like them as a team, but I need to see like a definitive year where they're like, that wasn't just a hype year. That was year one. We're going to do it again. I believe they'll be in the mix, but another team that, again, there were points where it's like, oh, we recovered an onside kick. Oh, we threw, a 50-yard Hail Mary bomb in the playoffs, clutched up. You know what I mean? Like, it's not always going to shake out that way.
And I'm going to be honest, and I'll say it right here. The Chicago Bears, they're going to be the worst team in their division. They're going to go from winning their division to the following season being last in their division. They're frauds. And when I look at their team, yes, they led the league in turnovers. That's not a stat that you can bank on year by year.
Yeah.
They had a whole bunch of fourth quarter comebacks. And we remember this with the Commanders when, man, they were winning all them close games and Jaden Daniels, these fourth quarter comebacks. That's not sustainable, right? So I believe that out of all the teams in the NFL, the team that is most prone for a regression, a step back type of year, it's the Bears. And you're talking about the Vikings, and they got Kyler Murray now. I definitely believe with Kyler Murray, they will be a much better team. He is that much better than J.J. McCarthy. They'll be a better team. And even with J.J. McCarthy and all them backup quarterbacks, they still won 9 games last year. And now they're going to have a, last place in the league schedule. Versus the Bears, they're going to have a first, place, in their division type of schedule, right? So that changes a lot of stuff. Same with the Lions, like even the Packers. Like if the Packers are healthy, I would probably say they're my favorite to win that division. But I think the Bears remind me a whole lot of the Commanders, and they're definitely prone to regress in this second season with Ben Johnson.
I think the only difference is that they're just younger. You know what I mean? Like the Commanders were a super old roster. The Bears, when I look at them, Offensively, especially, they're just super young. They have guys on rookie contracts, obviously, Caleb, Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, who I think is going to have a breakout year, Colston Loveland, their offensive line. Like, they have a good team, but again, it is a division that you just can't predict. And J.J. McCarthy completely screwed me over last year, but I do think the Vikings are a very good team heading into next season, and we'll also get to Kyler Murray in a few moments here. The last team I had on this list, and you touched on them just now, MJ, the Green Bay Packers, who had a tale of two completely different seasons. At points last year, I was watching and said, this is easily the best team in the league. But then there were also other games, and one that just pops into my mind immediately. I think they played the Browns, where they didn't even look like a playoff team. So for me, I've never been a huge Packers fan. I'm saying no. I still think that they're very average. I don't love their weapons. Josh Jacobs is aging, and defensively out of Micah, I don't love it. But I will admit, when Micah was healthy last year and they were firing on all cylinders, few games here, few games there, they looked phenomenal. It's concerning to me that Micah had the season-ending injury, and that's all they really got as far as game-breaking talent on the defensive side of the ball.
They had so many injuries last season. I'm talking about Micah Parsons gone, Tucker Kraft gone. So those are two all-pro players, potentially your two best players on your team. Folks forget, Tucker Kraft was on a tear, and he was showing, okay, I'm ready to step in and potentially be the number one option on that Packers team. And so you're bringing those guys back. They're going to be much better. And even with their wide receivers like Jaden Reed, he was injured. I know they're going to, lose Romeo Dobbs. I want to see Matthew Golden have a breakout year, because the tape shows that brother be open. They got to feed him the rock. Now, if he's getting the targets that a Luther Burden was getting, or, these other wide receivers, these other young wide receivers like Emeka Ibuka, who's telling me that Matthew Golden can't rise up? He can't, show out in those big moments. And I believe, if I'm correct, in that Bears game, he did show up and have a good game in the playoffs. So I'm looking at Matthew Golden. Can he step up? And it might be asking a lot for a second-year guy who wasn't used as much or wasn't heavily focused in the offense in his rookie year to make that leap to become the wide receiver one. But the issue with the Packers is, okay, who is going to be that bona fide one? They have a lot of twos and a couple of threes, but do they have that one X receiver? And then that's going to just balance out that whole entire offense and make them super, super lethal. I think they also got to take note that their coordinator, Jeff Hafley, is a wizard. Well, he was a wizard for them. So losing Jeff Hafley, that is a huge, huge loss. I believe now they have Jonathan Gannon. So Jonathan Gannon is a really good DC as well, but I don't think he's on the Jeff Hafley level. So that defense is going to have to adjust to a new scheme. But ultimately, I think talent-wise, with the guys that they're bringing back from injury, man, oh man, the Packers are going to be a tough team to compete with, and they should be a favorite, or at least them and the Lions, top two favorites to win the NFC North.
I've never seen a team draft a number one receiver in the first round and willingly choose to not use him. And that's really more of a Matt LaFleur issue, and I assume that's why they were comfortable with parting ways with Romeo Dobbs. Christian Watson, his hamstrings just aren't healthy, but when he's on the field, he's a game breaker. So I do think they have talent, just not an established one, but I do really like Tucker Kraft, and that's a great point. He was balling out last year. It's just about putting everything together, and the loss of Jeff Hafley definitely does hurt. I don't mind Jonathan Gannon either. Guys that are head coaches that might be suited as coordinators, we can't just knock them because they didn't work out as head coaches. Sometimes they're just suited for the coordinator role. That's what I think of a guy like Mike McDaniel as. But I do think the Packers, in a tough division, it's going to be a battle. And I don't know if they can escape that tough division. Let's talk franchise quarterbacks now, MJ. A lot of guys right now, younger, trying to prove themselves to their given franchises. I got 6 names here. Are you buying or selling these franchise QBs heading into 2026? Number 1, CJ Stroud. You can give me a yes or a no. Explain why. For me, I'm saying no. The traits I just can't unsee are the poor decision-making, the inaccuracy, and the terrible, and maybe this is just like recency bias, but the terrible playoff performance that I watched in 2025. I just can't get it out of my mind.
It's so... CJ Stroud is a victim of his front office. His front office got cocky, and they thought, okay, he was so great his rookie year. Who cares about the offensive line? Who cares? Doesn't really matter. Offensive line, defensive line. It don't matter at all. And clearly, it don't matter how great of a rookie season you had. What these DCs do is they turn that tape on. They see what your strengths are. They see what you need to work on. And they adjust accordingly. So you have that going on. And then you guys trade away your best offensive lineman, Laramie Tunsil, and he goes to the Commanders, and you're still not really investing in the offensive line the way you should. I mean, you got my guy Reed Blankenship. There was no problem with the defense, but y'all need an offensive line. So I think the reason why I would sell on CJ Stroud isn't really about his ability, because I think talent-wise, he's one of the top 10 most talented quarterbacks in the game. But when you talk about being, when you're around certain friends and they bring you down and you have that type of situation, when you're with a franchise that are not surrounding you with the pieces for you to be great, I can't buy on that. I have to sell. And it's sad because he's kind of like a victim of his own greatness, because he done had a super high, super great rookie year, and you haven't ever reached that pinnacle, since that point. You look at a guy like Bryce Young, his stock is damn near over CJ Stroud.
It's right there.
But it's not even because CJ Stroud is so much worse than Bryce Young, or just fell off the cliff to where Bryce Young is over. It's all about meeting those expectations. So with Bryce Young, it's they wasn't even expected to make the playoffs. They make it, and then now it's okay, some folks are higher on Bryce Young than CJ Stroud. Think about a couple of years ago, you would have been called crazy to think that. Now it's okay. Let's see what happens next season. So all in all, bro, I would say I would sell on CJ Stroud, and it's not even more about him, but about the roster around him. And they'll talk about that playoff game. He was terrible. I had the Texans actually, getting to the AFC Championship game. I believe with any competent quarterback, they would have gotten. And that's not me saying CJ Stroud didn't waste a generational defense, but man, that front office has a big part in the regression of Stroud.
I remember watching, and there was a game, I think it was the Titans, and you couldn't even raise the chip to your mouth to eat, and Jeffrey Simmons was all over the guy. It was sick. So I'm selling on him, and part of it is the failure on Houston's behalf as well. But I do think, and maybe part of it is just he's uncomfortable now. It's always in the back of your mind. You don't have any protection. Nico Collins is damn near on IR every other week. It's hard to get that consistency. Tank Dell blew out his knee. It's a gong show there. You can't get the consistency. You're uncomfortable. Maybe that plays into the decision-making, absolutely. But there have been things I've watched, and I'm just damn, I don't think I can buy into that right now as a franchise quarterback. But I'm not writing him off. He can find a spot elsewhere, and maybe it is Houston. It's just that defense has been way too good, and for the offense to look that bad, that trash for a few years now, it's head-scratching. So, like I said, I'm selling. You mentioned a guy in Bryce Young. That's my number 2 guy. Bryce Young, I'm leaning maybe. I'm kind of in the middle, but I'm leaning sell only because He's so damn inconsistent. I saw him on a game-to-game basis last year genuinely look elite and be an elite playmaker. Against the Rams in both games, regular season and the playoffs, he was phenomenal. And year one with the real roster, yes, he made the playoffs. Yes, he almost won a playoff game. Underdog playoff game, by the way. But as a franchise QB, if you define it as someone you genuinely see taking your team to the Super Bowl, which is what I envision a franchise quarterback being, it's a no. At least right now it's a no. He's just too inconsistent.
Too inconsistent, bro. And you're looking at like these young quarterbacks. It's so like, it's crazy what a year can do, because one season you could be like, man, like, this guy is just like one of them ones. The next season, and we're on Bo Nix, right?
Bryce Young.
Bryce Young. So Bryce Young is somebody that, again, last season, everybody's out on him. You saw a couple of flashes, but like, everybody's really like, all right, the Texans fleeced him. Man, oh man, Bryce Young, he's not that guy. And then now this season, part of this is because of how bad the Buccaneers were down the stretch. And it makes me think, right? Because if the Buccaneers weren't so god-awful down the stretch,
right, yeah,
the Panthers would have never even had a chance to make the playoffs, right? So part of Bryce Young's success, part of the Panthers' success last season was the fact that Baker Mayfield was playing terrible. Now, could that be injury? Regardless, he was out there. He was terrible at the end of the season, and the Buccaneers just crashed out. Now, you're looking at this. Yes, in the playoff game, Bryce Young, he showed up. He definitely showed up, and he gave his team a chance. But part of my issue with Bryce Young, and if we're being honest, Bo Nix has this tendency too, where they can play bad for 3 quarters. 3 quarters, they are god-awful. Come the fourth quarter, they have a game-winning drive, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, this guy is great. So I think with Bryce Young, he's got to be more consistent. It could be one game where he looks like a top 10 quarterback. The next game, he's a bottom 10 quarterback. Ask the Falcons. They have no idea which quarterback they're facing, because one minute he's amazing, the next minute he's the worst quarterback in the NFL. So if I'm going to keep it real, JV, I would say I'm selling, because I can't bank on this guy to consistently be great. I can bank on him to be great, sometimes, maybe every other week. Yeah, for sure. But can I bank on you as a franchise guy, week in, week out, that you are the guy that gets this team over the hump, that gets this team to make a deep postseason run? And they got some talent. They have some studs on that defense. And then offensively, even like last season, that offensive line was pretty damn good. You got Tet, who is showing, oh my gosh, he is a stud. You had that 1-2 punch with, Bubba, and you had, Rico Dow. Obviously, he's, going on to another team. But Bryce, he got some talent. He got some talent around him. But again, I can't buy it right now. I need to see more consistency from the young quarterback.
You got to. And I think he's going into year 4, and that's kind of the concern for me. And you talk about a guy like Bo Nix too, MJ. What about Bo Nix? Bo Nix, the next guy up, I'm buying only because, and listen, like, the inconsistency, it's true. He's also been very inconsistent, and he plays down to the level of competition, like I said earlier on in the episode. But as a playmaker, he's underrated, and I think the playoff game that I watched very closely as a Bills fan really convinced me that he is the guy. I mean, I think he should have been playing in a Super Bowl this season had he not been injured. Yes, there's consistency issues. Yes, he starts out season slow, and you never know really what you're going to get from him. But from what I've seen in my pure definition of can you get us to a Super Bowl, he can do that. And I do think with the progression rate that he's been going on, it's like, yeah, like I'm probably buying. I know that QB class was pretty insane. You had your Caleb's, your Jaden Daniels, your Drake Mays. Bo Nix, he doesn't have that star potential, I don't think, but I do think he is a guy that if you're Sean Payton right now, you're looking and you're saying, yeah, like I'm buying on it.
Bro, out of that 2024 QB draft class, there is an argument that Bo Nix is number 1 or number 2 based off just the resume,
Right.
based off the winning, based off, folks forget, because Jaden Daniels was just so great his rookie year, Bo Nix had 29 passing touchdowns to 12 interceptions in his rookie season. And he followed that up with 25 touchdowns passing to 11 interceptions. So he improved, I believe, just off the odds as he improved as a passer. All the stats might not show, but off the odds as he improved. The thing about Bo Nix that reminds me a little bit about Brock Purdy is that he has sneaky athleticism. Sneaky. And you wouldn't think it, but I think in order for Bo Nix to really fulfill his full potential is he has to lean more into the athleticism that he has. He is sneaky quick. He has some strength to him. And when he gets downhill, it's not too many guys that can stop him. And so I would say I would buy it. Not only because he's shown in the biggest moments that he performs at his apex, but also the talent he has around him. I think folks sometimes knock how much a true number 1 wide receiver can change the play of the quarterback and the entire team. You saw with Josh Allen, as soon as he got Stephon Diggs, he became a completely different quarterback. When my guy Jalen Hurts got A.J. Brown, you go from a 9-win season, a wild card exit, to the following season, you are an MVP candidate, an All-Pro, and you lead your team to the Super Bowl. That's the type of impact a wide receiver 1 can bring to your team. Shout out A.J. Brown. So with the Broncos, now Courtland Sutton, who was your wide receiver 1, but everybody knew he's a lower tier wide receiver 1. Well, if you have Courtland Sutton as your wide receiver 2, ooh, now you're talking about one of the better wide receiver 2s in the league. You're looking at Courtland Sutton, and now this Broncos offense really, really is cooking with some. So I think Bo Nix is a damn good quarterback. He's at the very least a top 3 quarterback in his draft class that was already stacked. But I'm buying, and I think this Broncos team is set to be a legit contender in the AFC.
Well, you want to talk about handpick too. Sean Payton went out there and picked his guy. He got rid of Russ, said, get out. We don't want you. Restructure your contract if you're not playing for us. Booted him out the damn building and brought in Bo Nix. And ever since, it's been success. And I know people talk about the average depth of target and he's dumping off balls. And I get it. But you look at some of his tape and the throws he makes down the field, it's pretty impressive. And I think you look at other quarterback situations in the league, and I'm buying on this. A guy you also mentioned, MJ, what about Baker Mayfield? Now, I know he's kind of on that mid-sized contract. I think he's getting $33 million per year at this point. I'm selling, and I love Baker Mayfield, and that's why it hurts. I love his style of play. I love the physicality, absolutely. And he'll go on stretches, MJ, where he dominates, and he will win you comeback game after comeback game on a final drive. He did it for the first 7 games of last season, but the inconsistency is his fatal flaw. And when it comes to the playoffs, I need a guy I can absolutely trust to at least protect the football. And at this point, Baker, who I believe is now turning 30 years old, kind of is who he is. And he's resurrected his career, and he's made his money, and he's a great quarterback in the league. But as a franchise guy, I'm looking at a guy like Bo Nix, who just took the Broncos deep into the playoffs, should have made the Super Bowl. I'd much rather have him as my franchise QB.
The tipping point for the Buccaneers season was when they lost to the Lions.
Yep, exactly.
And it was frankly a blowout. It wasn't even close. Since that game, since that loss, the Buccaneers last season went 3-7 in their last 10 games. Now, some have said, and somebody that knows the best, Levante David, he said, man, Baker was playing with all these injuries and he was just doing everything he could to be there for us. And I think there is some facts in that. And obviously every quarterback is going through some injuries. I'm just sorry. Like at the end of the season, what quarterback do you not know going through something? Ask Josh Allen.
Yeah,
And I ain't trying to compare him to Josh Allen, but damn it, Josh Allen was going through a lot of stuff and they fighting through it. Like everybody's fighting through something. But I do think that you weren't able to see Baker at his apex because of the injuries, right? And some of the fourth quarter interceptions, he's a gunslinger. So he'll take a lot of chances. Sometimes it works, and when it works, he's amazing, right? Talk about that win over the Seahawks. You're looking at him like, man, like, could this guy be MVP? On the other side, it's okay. Well, you can't say that this guy's MVP in September and then he goes 3-7 his last 10 games. Well, I guess it would be, 3-8 his last 11 games of the season and then be crickets. So you got to be fair in that aspect. I will say, it's interesting because Mike Evans leaves now. So now somebody got to be that wide receiver one. Could it be Ibuka? Does Chris Godwin, enter that role? But I think that this is probably the toughest one for me. His contract definitely helps him because given his production, that's a very, very team-friendly contract he has. And the division is terrible. So I'll say I'll buy low on Baker Mayfield because the Buccaneers can very well win that sorry division. And Baker Mayfield in playoff games, I know it best. He lit up my Eagles, lit them up. And he got outplayed by Jay and Daniels, but even that was still a tough game, last postseason. So I'll buy low on Baker Mayfield. And I think it's super, super low, his stock right now. But you kind of hit rock bottom last season. You would think the only way is up.
Yeah, and I think it's just the age that concerns me, and if we can just get some consistency, because there were points last year, like I watched the Dolphins game where he was just throwing ill-advised picks, and it was like, man, you lost the game for the team, or like you said, that Lions game, he was just airmailing pass after pass, but if he got it on a consistent basis, I love him. I love the physicality, and I don't know how long that lasts either, like eventually that falls off in your mid-30s as a quarterback. I can't stress it enough. Like, I love him as a player. It's just, as a franchise QB, do I think he takes the Bucs to a Super Bowl? I don't know. I don't know, especially with the state of the NFC right now. Talking about NFC quarterbacks, MJ, we got two more here. Caleb Williams. And I'm saying yes, absolutely. The talent is through the roof. My only concern right now is the accuracy, which has to be cleaned up eventually. You could argue the decision-making in that playoff performance, but I think a lot of that was just ballsy, kind of overconfident play calling from Ben Johnson as well when they didn't need to drive the ball all the way down the field in one pass. He's easily been the most successful Bears quarterback through the first 2 years of his Bears career. So, yeah, I'm buying for sure on Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I would buy on Caleb Williams, and he has the chance to become the MVP of the league. I think that Bears defense is sorry as hell. So one thing that you can bank on is that the Bears are going to be in some shootouts next season. And with Ben Johnson calling plays and Caleb Williams, you kind of saw some foreshadowing in the playoff game against the Packers, just how great Caleb Williams can be on a game-to-game basis. His thing, you got to be consistent. And he's a home run hitter. But there's sometimes you got to just hit that single to first base. You got to just bunt. get them, just live to see another day. And so with Caleb is all right. You don't have to hit the home run shot every single time. There's gonna be some passes between the hashes, the short intermediate passing game. Can you hit those consistently? If Caleb Williams is able to hit those short intermediate passes on a consistent basis, the way that Jared Goff did it for Ben Johnson, you're talking about an MVP. Because then he has something that only one quarterback in the league has in Patrick Mahomes, the ability to just make every single throw on the field and evade sacks like no other. I mean, Caleb, just talent-wise, who was there with him? This is a mini Mahomes right here. And with Luther Burden, he's been cooking. With Colson Loveland, he's been cooking. I know beginning of the season, his usage rate wasn't like that. And folks was saying Tyler Warren is over him. Like, now it's a legit debate. Like, who would you have, Tyler Warren or Colson Loveland? And I think a lot of folks could say Colson Loveland, given the fact that he wasn't as used as much as what Tyler Warren was last season. So everything is pointing to the Bears offensively to grow. You got these young guys, Roma Dunze and DeAndre Swift, Kyle Monunga. If that offensive line stays healthy, I'm pretty sure Caleb Williams is going to be a top 3 MVP candidate next season.
I don't mind that take at all. The last guy I had here, MJ, give me Cam Ward. And honestly, straight up, it's just too early, in my opinion. I can't necessarily say I'm buying or selling, but if I'm looking purely at the talent perspective, I'm buying. He made throws last year, and I talked to professional quarterbacks who said they wowed them. It's just, again, he had his rookie mishaps. It happens. You're a rookie quarterback. You're on a terrible team. You're not going to, show out and be this star in the league year one unless you're on a team that can contend. You're not going to get media attention. He didn't get any media attention, really, as a number 1 overall draft pick, which is crazy. But I will say, as a talent, I'm buying. But overall, as a franchise QB, I just think it's too early. But I'm leaning yes. It's the best option the Titans are going to have, at least in the near future.
Cam Ward got to show me some more. He got to show me some more. And I'll say this, from a coaching perspective, he's in a great situation. You talk about Robert Saleh. When folks leave the Jets, they immediately get better. Robert Saleh, it was never he couldn't coach. He wasn't that guy. No. Maybe it was just the Jets. You can't cure them. They are cooked. And so Robert Saleh is a damn good coach. Brian Daboll, I think he could have been a head coach for like a bottom tier team.
Definitely.
Like the Browns, something like that. Mm-hmm. But even like the Dolphins maybe. But he decides, okay, I believe in Cam Ward. Also, if we're 500, I guess you can't be 500. If we're like 8-9, 9-8, and we miss the playoffs, I could still be in line for being assistant coach of the year and getting a head coaching job. So Brian Daboll, he knows the optimism in Tennessee, the fact that Cam Ward has some talent. Again, this is a roster. They have to hit it out the park in the draft. You need to surround Cam Ward with some weapons. It's interesting because I got to buy or sell. I'm a buy for Cam Ward because of the coaching. I think the coaching will be better. I think that offensive line will be better. It wasn't even that bad last season. It's just you don't have as many skill position players as the top teams do. But if they're 9-8 and Cam Ward, puts together maybe like 20 passing touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 3,800 yards, that's a huge win. So I'm buying because when you talk about expectations, their expectations are so low that it's almost impossible to disappoint.
And that's exactly what you want, I think. If you're Cam Ward, you're in a spot where, I mean, we talked about Baker hitting rock bottom and the only place is up. It's kind of the same situation for Cam Ward, even though he did have, a decent year, I'd say, film-wise. If you truly break down the film and see some of the throws, he was phenomenal. And Brian Daboll, a guy that's, credited for the development of Josh Allen, if anybody's going to do it, I believe in him to step into Tennessee, and they get a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson who's going to help and be that security blanket, right, and help the growth and development. So as a young quarterback with talent, I'm buying. Again, it's going to be tough to completely buy in on this guy until he's got a decent team, but I have seen the talent, and at this point, I like it. I like what I've seen. Let's switch over now, MJ, to our Prove It Year quarterbacks, NFL Quarterback Edition. We'll tear through these 5. We're going to rank them all, okay? I'm going to ask you, rank these 5 quarterbacks on their likelihood of resurrecting their careers. I'd call it like the next Sam Darnold. We saw what he did in Minnesota, saw what he did winning a Super Bowl in Seattle. There are 5 guys, I think, right now that truly have the potential to do so. Some of them on big contracts, some of them on the bare minimum. So I'll list them out, and you can just give me your top 5, maybe a little explanation if you'd like. We got Kyler Murray, Daniel Jones, Malik Willis, Tua, and Mac Jones. For reference, my list, at least going into this, I had Kyler Murray at 1 because I love the fit in Minnesota, and that's part of it, right? Sometimes you go to a bad place, it's not really your fault, but you're kind of screwed over. I love the fit with the Vikings. They're kind of a playoff-ready roster already. Number 2, I had Mac Jones, another year under Kyle Shanahan. Don't be fooled. I think he gets another shot to start in this league, and he's made the playoffs before as a rookie with the Patriots. Number 3, I went Daniel Jones, who looked amazing, like MVP-level stuff for the first 40% of last year. Then he blew out his ACL, and it was all downwards from there. I think he gets another shot, and it was encouraging what we saw. Number 4, I went Tua, who I think landed in the best situation possible in Atlanta. I don't think super highly of Michael Penix. With the weapons the Falcons have, and believe me, he has competent enough coaching as far as like talent development and Kevin Stefanski. I think if there was one place to go, Atlanta's the spot for Tua to revive his career. And number 5 is Malik Willis. I love the talent, but you can't look at that Dolphins depth chart and tell me you're excited. I think he's forgotten about after 2 years, unfortunately, and never gets another shot because the team wasn't ready.
I think you have a great list there, and when I think about quarterbacks that got to prove it, there's kind of like 2 ways you can go about it, because you have the quarterbacks that are trying to emulate what you said, what Sam Darnold did, where everybody's doubting you. You might come in and you're not the main guy, but you end up becoming the main guy. And I think off the bat, everybody knows Kyler Murray should do wonders with the talent the Vikings have. Mm-hmm. Again, if they won 9 games with J.J. McCarthy, nicknamed 9, essentially being the worst quarterback in the league, if Kyler Murray is a top 20 quarterback, top 18, top 15, he's going to be way better than what, the 30th best quarterback, 32nd best quarterback in the league. So he's definitely in for a prove it year, to where, yes, you're in a great situation, but also, my brother, like, you got to get it done, because you have Jettas, you have Addison, you have TJ Hawkinson, you have some guys, and you have a phenomenal defense with Brian Flores calling plays. So he's my number 1 right there. I have a 2A and a 2B. Okay. My 2A is Penix. My 2B is Tua.
Okay.
Because honestly, it's a prove-it year for both of them. Now, best case scenario, if you're a Falcons fan, is that Michael Penix becomes the franchise guy and you don't see Tua on the field. If I'm a Falcons fan and Tua is on the field, we have failed as a franchise. We have officially failed, because he should not be touching the field at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. What that tells me is Michael Penix was a bust, and you used a high draft pick on a guy that couldn't even beat out Tua for a spot. That's really, really bad.
That's
and with
sad.
all that talent.
Yeah.
With all that talent. So that's like the 2A, 2B. But also, if Tua gets that opportunity, you have a really good play caller, good coach in Kevin Stefanski. I know folks in Atlanta, they don't like how he did Shador. And I do think that with Stefanski, it's like, is he the guy to manage another quarterback situation? I think that's a fair criticism. But X's and O's wise, he knows what he's doing, and you have the talent that's undeniable. So if Penix isn't that guy, Tua, there's pressure on you to prove it. Another guy has got to be Malik Willis. And the sad part is, I feel like he's being put in one of the worst situations outside of the Jets in the NFL. To where, okay, I'm thinking the Dolphins actually believed in him. They actually said, you know what? We saw what you did with the Packers. And man, oh man, you were going crazy. And honestly, Malik Willis' play is the reason why the Eagles have their new OC in Sean Mannion, because he's credited for a lot of the success that not only Jordan Love had, but Malik Willis. Well, he's going to the Dolphins, and they traded their number one wide receiver, Tyreek. He got cut. So who is he going to be throwing the ball to? It doesn't make sense because A-Chain, well, they're saying they're not going to trade him. But it's like, dog, like, he don't have the help for real. So I think Malik Willis is just in that top 5 because he just frankly got to prove it. It's the NFL. And you don't have to be in like the best situation to prove it, but you got to deliver. But he's like not in like a good situation there. Another guy that I would say, and he's in a bad situation, Geno Smith. Now, again, he's a bridge quarterback, right? He's a bridge quarterback, and what the Jets are doing, they're trying to set themselves up for the 2027 quarterback draft class, which should be much, much better. Well, Geno, you cannot have the season you had with the Raiders. Oh, my goodness. And the thing is, too, expectations are super low. So the Jets don't have much hope, but if you can give them any spark, anything, then you could go from potentially being out the league to getting like a 4 to 5 year shelf life of being either a bridge quarterback somewhere and bouncing around the league, or being a backup guy and being that for years to come. So I think there's pressure on Geno to go back to the squad that drafted him and to at least be better than what Justin Fields was, which I don't believe is very, very hard to do. My last guy is somebody who I frankly feel like never gets criticism. I frankly feel like when he has these playoff blunders, folks just, look over it because he has the eye-dropping talent, and that's Justin Herbert. I'm sorry. When is there going to be a point that when folks crap on Jalen Hurts, they talk about Josh Allen, they talk about Dak Prescott, they talk about Lamar Jackson, all of these quarterbacks, but some way, somehow with Justin Herbert, he has a bad playoff game. Oh, who cares? Who cares? And yes, was his situation perfect? No. The offensive line, it was bad. But he had a top 5 defense, and they did a great job drafting talent around him. You have, Gasson, you have Ladd, Quinton Johnson. They brought back Keenan Allen and stuff. Like, he had some pieces. In the playoff game, he was objectively terrible. Now, not only does he still have Jim Harbaugh, who I believe is a top 5 coach in the NFL, he potentially has the best play caller, non-head coach in the NFL. It's a reason why Mike McDonald came, because he wants to, play with, coach Justin Herbert. But Herbert, you got to deliver. You need at least one playoff win. Otherwise, it's going to be like, all right, when are you ever? Are you just like a Phillip Rivers 2.0?
Well, you talk about prove it years too. And it's like you can make an argument this is a big prove it year for the Bengals and Joe Burrow. And I know he's been great. Like, don't get me wrong. He's had the stats and they jump off the charts, absolutely. But as a trio, it's like, how many more years are you going to sit back and wait? And I think the thing with Herbert is the talent is obviously there, and we see the regular season performances. And we'll talk about it right now. I assume that they might target at least one more weapon, maybe a big-ticket item. MJ, I know you're an Eagles guy. I'd love to get your input on two big Eagles headlines to wrap up the episode here. Number one, and we're talking about prove-it seasons right now, so we might as well talk about your quarterback, Jalen Hurts. Is this a prove-it year for Jalen Hurts? And I know maybe, it's crazy to say he just won a Super Bowl, year removed. Last year, it was kind of up and down, a lot of downs, a lot of negativity around him, and obviously this article drops. After the 2026 season, the dead cap on the contract dips down to $67 million, which can be divided over 2 seasons. There's no discussions up to this point as far as a contract extension goes, paying him some more money, brand new contract. Obviously, the ESPN article was a complete bombshell, and people are just ripping him apart. They want to find out the truth. Yes, 2024 was phenomenal. 2025, in my opinion, was subpar. Do you think this is somewhat of a prove-it year, especially considering how harsh the Philly fan base is? I'm sure you know it best. There are some fans out there that are cutthroat, and I know y'all are head over heels for the guy. But one bad season, 1 year where it's like we're not satisfied, you're ready to boot him out the club.
I know Philly. Game 1, if there is a 3-and-out, you are going to hear fans say start Tanner McKee. If there is a 3-and-out on the first drive, that's just what Philly is. So I think in terms of the city of Philadelphia and the pressure that the quarterbacks that play for Philly have, every single one has had pressure. Every single one has had pressure to deliver and, show up and show out for the city. So there is pressure for Hurts in Philly and on the team to deliver because the defense did their job. And I believe we had one of the worst offensive coordinators in the 21st century in Kevin Patullo. And you look at the league, now he's a passing game coordinator for the Dolphins. So he's essentially not even calling plays for potentially the worst team in the NFL. Like these top quarterbacks, whether it's the Purdy's or you're talking about the Caleb Williams or these guys, they have such better play callers with them that, you frankly can't undersell right there. But I would argue in terms of Jalen Hurts in relation to all the top quarterbacks in the NFL, what's the pressure? He's accomplished more than all these guys. So I think a lot of times we get defensive because we see it's a make it or break a year for Jalen Hurts. And every year it's something. Every year he got to prove this, he got to prove that. When will it ever stop? Because we saw Josh Allen in the biggest game of the year have 4 turnovers. So we're saying, dang, the guy that just won MVP last year, that followed that up the following season with a career high in passing yards, and in terms of teams that won their division in back-to-back years, the Eagles were the only team that won their division in back-to-back years in 2024 and 2025. So, yes, is everything perfect? Heck no. And does Hurts have things to work on? Yes, reading zone coverages. That's been a weakness of his, right? He loves man coverage. He loves doing that. But sometimes you got to be able to pick those pockets in the zone. Also, you got to run more. If you're not going to run more, there's going to be more pressure on you in the pocket to deliver. And that is completely fair. That's my biggest knock on him. You got to be able to run the freaking football. If you're not doing that, that's a huge part of your game that you're leaving out on the table. And we need that element because that's what makes you great. So ultimately, I think there's pressure for him in Philly. But when you're talking about all of the quarterbacks in the NFL, is it a make it or break a year for Hurts? When Herbert ain't get a freaking playoff win? When CJ Stroud was the sole reason why his generational defense didn't make it to the AFC Championship like Dak Prescott? Is he ever going to make it to the NFC Championship game? What about the Rams? And you have the reigning MVP who has a couple of years left. And it's like, all right, like, are y'all going to win another one with this stacked roster? Like, there are other quarterbacks, and I don't believe that with Matthew Stafford, but that's just another example of, shoot, bruh, can we have other smoke for other guys? But they won't because there aren't as trendy of names and stuff like that. So I get it. We do content. I get it. So ultimately, yes, it's pressure. Long way of saying it. But I don't feel like it's warranted the way that they've been trying to make it out to be.
Well, and maybe just to like clarify with the Hurts situation, and you watch guys like Josh Allen or Lamar and Matthew Stafford, and the list goes on, right? And something that fans, I think, always bank on is the fact that they're always statistically phenomenal in the regular season, and the majority of them have had some decent playoff success. Now, obviously, Allen never getting to the Super Bowl. Lamar has been, on and off in the playoffs, for the most part off, to be honest with you. But Matthew Stafford obviously winning one, Burrow getting there early on in his career. That's kind of how we judged him. But the thing with Hurts is he doesn't necessarily always like shine in the regular season. I think on their Super Bowl run, he was below 3,000 passing yards on the season. So at that point, fans start looking at Hurts and saying, okay, if you're winning Super Bowls, that's cool, but that's how we're going to judge you. We're going to judge you based on your playoff success and how much you win, because if it's not that, it's like, it ain't the stats. You know what I mean? And I think that's where people got frustrated last year is like, okay, things weren't working out. Philly fans were pretty pissed late on in the season, and it was the play calling. And it was a combination of issues. And I do not like the coaching staff in Philly, to be fully transparent. I've never been a Nick Sirianni fan. I was never a Kevin Patullo fan. But I think that's where the media does attack him. And I think both sides just get too harsh on it. You know what I mean? And at this point, there is going to be some Philly pressure this year, especially if those first few games end up being losses. Oh, it's wraps. Like, Philly fans are going to be pissed, just like they were after that Chargers game last year. But I do agree that there are a handful of quarterbacks that still have so much to prove and also have failed when it comes to the playoffs. So it definitely is a valid argument. And then the other big story coming out of Philly, MJ, we'll wrap things up on this, is A.J. Brown. Now, he's been in the media ever since the season started in 2025. The odds, I think, is that he gets traded, but I'm not really sure. It's very, muddy right now. Like, I don't know if Philly wants him around, if they don't want him around. But let's say he does get traded, MJ. What are your top 3 trade destinations for A.J. Brown? Number 1, I had the New England Patriots. Number 2, I had the Baltimore Ravens. Number 3, I had the Chargers. 3 teams that I think desperately need a true number 1 receiver already in the playoff hunt, playoff picture, and potentially the Super Bowl picture that could all benefit. But truly, I think the Patriots pull away as the number 1 favorite, especially considering that connection with Mike Vrabel back in his time with the Titans. Plus, A.J. Brown, I believe, grew up as a Patriots fan too, which plays a role into things.
I would say my top 3 has got to be, and this is a curveball right here. First, the Jaguars. I'll explain them in a second. 2, the Chargers. I'm with you there. And 3, the Patriots. Now I'll get to the Jaguars. I propose a trade that anybody with football knowledge would actually say, shoot, the Eagles are really fleecing this team. I had Brian Thomas Jr., and a first for A.J. Brown. Now, the Jaguars are not going to give up a first-round pick again after they gave up one to get Travis Hunter. But if you're telling me you could get BTJ and a second for A.J. Brown, I would do that. I look at this. What first-round wide receiver has the ability in their rookie season to give you 10 touchdowns and 1,200 yards? Because that's what Brian Thomas Jr. did. Now, yes, sophomore season, he wasn't as good, and you are buying low right now. But again, it's crazy how a year changes so many opinions. Because if I was to say this trade last season, people would I think real football fans would say, dang, that's the Jaguars giving up a lot. But if I said this last year, it'd be like, BTJ is a top 10 wide receiver in the game.
For sure.
And so I think the issue with the Eagles trading with the Patriots is the fact that they would be trading A.J. Brown after the 2026 draft. And what that means is you're not actively getting your team in a better position to win the bowl. If the Patriots traded their first round pick in 2027 and their second round pick in 2027, or their second round pick in 2028, that's not helping the Eagles right now. They're actually going to be a worse team that's going to have Devontae as number one, which I love, but you're going to have Hollywood Brown as number two. That's a tremendous drop off from AJ and Smitty. So if you're going to trade AJ Brown, you need a proven piece, a proven starter that can at least start day one, at least produce offensively from the jump. You cannot trade for draft capital and you're in win now mode and the offensive line ain't getting older. Ain't getting older. It's definitely getting older. It ain't getting younger. Saquon Barkley, he's not getting younger. This defense, more guys are going to have to get paid, which means less cap space for the offense. So, man, oh, man, I'm looking to definitely get a proven guy in an AJ trade package. Like you said, it's a lot of oh, well, folks are speaking up for AJ. And I think when you have somebody that he hasn't directly said he's getting traded, but neither the GM or the coach or the guy has come out and said publicly, yeah, I want to stay in Philly long term, or I want this guy to be in Philly long term, we're not trading him. You have to just have common sense to say, all right, yeah, he wants out, but he's doing the Eagles a favor, a huge favor, by not requesting a trade formally like our rival did in Dexter Lawrence. So I think AJ will get traded, but it's got to be for a proven piece that can help you during next season. So number one, the Jaguars. I like that BTJ trade. The Chargers too. If you can get Ladd, it might not do it just because Ladd has shown you so much young and he might be untouchable. But I like their tight end, Gadsden. I think he's a tremendous receiving threat. And if you have some two tight end sets with Gadsden and Goddard, shoot, you cooking right there. So I would love that. And even for AJ, look, I crap on Herbert a lot, and I say he don't have any postseason wins and stuff like that. I'm not an idiot. I do know if that guy is with Justin Herbert and Mike McDonald, he's probably going to put up 1,700 yards. That's probably going to happen. And for AJ, he already won a championship. So, hell, if I go out here and, I'm putting up, potentially, competing for the Triple Crown, that's my legacy right there. I won a chip already, and I'm trying to make the Hall of Fame. Lastly, the Patriots, again, it makes the most sense on paper. You have the Mike Vrabel, connection, and, he just loves the Patriots so much. I think, bro, it pissed me off a lot when he was on Edelman's podcast and winked when he was talking about we're Patriots, right? It's just just say you want to be traded, bro. At a certain point. Right. And I think the Eagles fans that were defending it. Because, bro, there's two sides of stuff. I'm more leaning towards the brother don't want to be here. Let's just trade him. There's some folks that they're literally seeing this guy just blatantly cheat on us. Blatantly cheat on us. And you say, you know what? Like, who cares? Who cares? Who cares? I would say number 1 Jaguars, number 2 Chargers, number 3 Patriots. But I probably conceded that the Patriots are the most likely scenario.
Yeah, unfortunately. And they got Dobbs, right? But it's not a one. And I think I'll wrap up on this point, MJ, but the idea of BTJ and another guy who I really like in Marvin Harrison Jr. being like done or giving up on them is just a wild thought to me. Like, obviously, BTJ had his great rookie year, and then year 2, Liam Cohen comes in, you kind of change things, you draft Travis Hunter, you have a bunch of weapons, you have a few bad drops, and there's this narrative painted about you that's really bad, but it's like, damn, the guy's like 23 years old. He's got the sky's the limit right now. And you look at Marvin Harrison Jr., it's like, you know, all we saw was him with Kyler in a system that nobody really loves, and people have already written him off. And, you know, granted, Malik Neighbors in that class was phenomenal, but it's also like, listen, like, these guys still have talent. They still have the opportunity to be great. And if you can package up that deal with the Jags, I don't mind it. I just don't know where the Jags are at right now. I was even thinking as far as to say, like, maybe even the Packers are an option, just thinking about teams ready to go, because I don't think A.J. Brown, to be honest with you, and I don't know him, but he's humble enough to go to a team that is, you know, like rebuilding or kind of on like the cusp of the playoffs. I think he wants to go to a contender, which is why I had 3 contenders listed and why I don't mind your list either, MJ. But, you know, I think it is the Patriots at the end of the day. Like, I think they just got to get it done and move forward, because next year, if he's on the roster, I just view it as really messy. You know, I just don't think it's going to work to Philly's favor. Although he is really talented, is fit in the offense really well. Like, I don't know. I just see the media reports being so damn bad and annoying, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's going to be really bad because he's playing nice right now. If there goes a game, where he's not getting that many touches, he's going to crash out. And he's been bottling up a lot of stuff. And I had issue with it because you can't be chirping on social media all season long. And the biggest game of the year, you fold. Folks are crapping on Jalen Hurts. But if A.J. Brown made some of them catches that are routine for an all-world player like him, who says the Eagles don't beat the 49ers? I mean, he could have caught the ball in stride at the end of the game and walked into the end zone, and he dropped it. And he was the main one talking crazy on social media. So I do know that if he stays on the roster and come week 1, he's not being involved in the offense, he's not going to block for teammates. He's not going to run his routes right. He's already checked out. And it's kind of like you and your girlfriend, and like, you know that she's checked out, and you can do one little thing and she like makes a whole argument. It's not even about that one little thing. It's more about she just don't want to be with you anymore. It's like, that's kind of what it is with the Eagles and A.J. Brown. It only takes one opportunity for him to be a little bit annoyed, for him to really show out. You don't want that. And if that happens, well, that makes just the whole trade value on his part go down. Yeah. Right now, you can get a first-round pick, I believe. A first and a third. Best case scenario, a first and a second. But shoot, if he is playing next season for the Eagles and he's pouting on social media and stuff, that goes from a first and a third to just a third to a fourth. Like, so they got to be real careful right here, but I think a trade gets done around that June 1st deadline.
It's got to, man. MJ, this was a blast. Can you let the people know where they can find you?
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, JV. You can find me at Real Talk with MJ on all platforms and on Twitter/X. Real Talk with MJ #1. Pleasure to be on here, talking some NFL, all of that. And yeah, I got to have you back on Real Talk very, very soon.
Yes, sir, MJ. We'll chop it up.